welcome to the Metal Mixtape here on KSQ 89.5 FM Ashland, Oregon, 94.1 FM Medford, Oregon, and streaming online on kskqdjramo. It's the boy, it's the Don DJ Ramo, and we are talking to Matt from Blood Red Roses. Matt, it is so nice to have you on the call, my friend.
Thank you so much, dude. It's great. You're in Oregon, right?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. I love it out there.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I haven't been to New Jersey, but my dad's from Middletown, Connecticut, and a lot of my family's from over there, so I love the East Coast.
Yeah, it's not bad. People think it's all bad. No, it's fun out here.
I mean, you know what? One thing I know is like there's like a lot of just history, you know, over in those towns. It's just like, you know, anytime I ever go to the East Coast, I just always see monuments, all these stories, all these just historical things that like you wouldn't necessarily see on the West Coast.
No, there's been a lot of history here from people coming over and war and all that stuff. So it's entertaining. There's lots to do, that's for sure.
Hell yeah, dude. So, man, there's so much to talk about, man. Of course, you know, the new album, Fall to the Hate. But you know what? But what I love about you guys, dude, is that I was looking way before, like, where you guys were doing, like, your older songs, Falling, which is absolutely incredible. I was watching your guys' live videos, and you know, for me, like, I felt like you guys were very, like, maybe you haven't got metalcore yet, but I heard a lot of metalcore, but then a lot of heavy, like, I would say, like, new metalcore is what I got a lot from your guys' sound, because, I mean, I've been listening to metal for, like, almost 30 years now, dude, and I love that even through all these genres and all these bands, there are still bands like you guys that stick apart. I love the lead vocals with Pete on, you know, and then the bass vocals coming through, dude. I think you guys are an amazing dynamic. I just love the sound you guys have.
I greatly appreciate that. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, there's a lot of influences that change the way. It's basically you got four guys that really do listen to the same stuff in certain ways, but really not. Like being the drummer, I'm a huge fan of bands like Hatebreed, Parkway Drive, Goida, and of course at my age I grew up on Metallica and Megadeth, and I still love Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer and you know, like Slipknot, you know, like it's just I listen to the heavy stuff and it sounds really weird, but believe it or not, early rap,
oh, yeah.
real rap like NWA and Public Enemy, not this poppy, golden, you know, gold teeth and driving Bentleys everywhere. No. So I actually have some of that influence there. I went and saw Snoop Dogg live with Linkin Park, and he had a live band play with him, and I was stupefied. I was like, this is badass.
Dude, no, that is badass. And no, I totally agree with you, man, because, like, you know, rap back in the day was, like, singing more about, like, the culture. And nowadays it's, like, you're flaunting the entire time and bloviating about bullshit.
That's pretty much it. So back to my point was it's an eclectic, you know, you got someone in the band, you know, Pete loves U2. The Police, classical music, jazz, pop, like we all have different influences, but at the end of the day, we all agree upon Megadeth, Metallica, you know, like I said, Hatebreed comes from me. I just love the beat down. The beat down. That's my favorite. That's what I call it, the beat down beat. And, you know, that sort of all comes together. And, you know, on the older stuff like Fallen, there were some radio stations around here. You get them the new stuff, and they're still playing Fallen. And the reason I come up with that is the song hits home. Especially nowadays. Fallen is about, for some of us, on many levels. And it just, we put our heart and soul into that tune. And I guess it's still liked. I'm kind of shocked, but I'll take it.
No, honestly, when I listen to it, now the way, like, you explain it, how, like, it hits home and how, like, radio stations are still playing it, is because, yeah, I mean, I really love your album, Fall to the Hate, and I have, like, 3 songs I want to talk about, but Falling, I would say that it was pretty incredible. I mean, I thought it was very is very metalcore-ish meets like new metal type of wave, where like it almost has like a Breaking Benjamin, but more of like you were saying, like a beatdown type of drums to it, because like I always say with a riff is only as heavy as the drummer. Because you can put 10 different drummers behind one riff, and it could sound like 10 different genres. And even my favorite song that I wrote down here, which I specifically wrote my favorite drums, was Demon Disguise off of Fall to Hate. And there's all sorts of aggressions that you show in all of your songs, but now hearing all your influences, I think just like compiling all that like totally makes sense now. Were you growing up? Were you always like a metal drummer, or how did you start playing with their family in the band that like inspired you? Was there some guy who handed you like a Metallica record and was like, check this out, kid? Like what was your first introduction to this metal and this drummer that you are now?
Yeah, it was in grade school, believe it or not, like 7. I was trying to find my identity as a kid, and my parents had forced me onto a violin.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell is this? and I played it, and I hated it, and I was miserable. And then finally my dad came and said, so what do you want to play? And I had listened to Joan Jett, and I was trying to, and just, she had pounding drums, and then in 1983, Round and Round by Rat, and Twisted Sister, and I was like, ooh, I'm like, listen to these beats, listen to what this drummer is doing. I'm like, I like it. And I was still trying to find myself. All my friends around me stuff were listening to U2, and my sister was Duran Duran and U2, and she was eclectic as well, but wasn't a metal thing. And then when I got into 8th grade, a friend, a guy from Jamaica, a kid from Jamaica, hilarious, was a metalhead. He's like, dude, it's time to change. And he threw at me Overkill. He threw at me Anthrax, early Metallica, early Megadeth. The first Megadeth album blew my mind. And I was hooked. So because after the violin, I knew I wanted to play drums. So in Princeton, where I grew up, the studio jazz band in the high school is world renowned. It won all kinds of awards at Berkeley. If you were part of this Jew studio band, you were the best of the best, blah, blah, blah. And so I was being forced into a jazz position. My teachers were all jazz. And here's one thing funny for you. You're familiar with the Blues Travelers, right?
Oh, of course, man. I know Blues Travelers.
I grew up with Brendan, the drummer.
Oh,
and he, showed me the way. I was always his backup because he was just ridiculously good. And so I took the heavier route, and I finally said, I don't want to do jazz. I want to play heavy. So formed some bands in high school, and still wasn't heavy enough. It wasn't until I got to, hair bands were big as well when I was in high school, so I tended towards that. My guitar players were White Lion, Doc, and George Lynch was my one guitar player's total inspiration. Winger and all that, and I was like, all right, great, but I was always sort of not towards that side. I was always towards Slayer. I heard Hell Awaits, and I was like, oh dear God. And then you have the heavier bands like Death, and I got into them, I'm like, oh my God. And that's sort of how it came with me.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say that's pretty insane, man. That okay, you start off as a violin player, and then your friend shows you all these styles, but you're playing jazz, and in the massive era of hair metal, started transitioning. It's like man, were you always an aggressive drummer, playing all these lighter genres before you got into metal? Were you a slamming jazz player, and then when you were playing these 80s ballads, were you just always just a heavy drummer in those styles as well?
It's you're the first person, and it's always been. It's just so funny because I was doing the jazz thing and not feeling it, but don't get it, jazz drumming is crazy impossible. You really have to feel the groove, man, and it was hard. It was really hard. And then I remember I joined, hair band, high schoolers, and, blonde, long hair, boots, all that crap. And I started playing with them, and the two brothers in the band were like, dude, you got to do better. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, you're not playing hard, you're not giving it your all. And I'm like, really? And I remember I went home and I looked in the mirror, I said, wait a minute. I said, screw this. And the next day I went into rehearsal, and they're like, what happened to you? I'm like, I'm tired of joking around. I'm like, let's rumble. And from then on, like from 88 when I was in sophomore in high school going forward, there was no turning back. And it just kept getting harder and harder. And if you're not hitting hard, what's the point if that's the type of music you're playing?
100%.
And, Lars, his style, I remember when I was in college, I was doing a recording project because I went to school for audio engineering and all that crap. And there were some friends down the way in the other studio doing other things, and they came in going, we were wondering Lars was playing because I write down to the hairstyle, and I'm bigger than him, but, that's what people compared me to was Lars. And I think that's a compliment to me.
Dude, no, that's badass, dude. And like I said, I really love your drumming on this record. Do you remember your first big show where you really thought like you could take this to like the next level? Playing like these big festivals, playing with these big bands. Do you remember your first big band? Your first big show experience where you were just like, holy shit, Matt, like this is the real deal. Like we're gonna fucking do something. Do you remember like your first big show like that?
Well, with this band or with my others?
In your career.
In my career, there's a big venue in Jersey that originally was called the Birch Hill Nightclub, which is now called the Starland Ballroom. The Starland Ballroom gets everything from Korn all the way to up and coming artists, Hatebreed, Band Lit Testament. They all play there. And when it was the Birch Hill, I remember there was a lot of it's a blur. But I would say one of the biggest was, and it was stepping on stage opening for, let's see, who'd we open for? We opened for Zebra at one point, which is a band from the 80s early, and the place was mobbed. We opened up for Anthrax, and it was 2,000 strong, and I was stupefied. I was sitting there going, I cannot believe it. And you're nervous, but at the same time, you're like, I'm going to go whip some ass. Another big thing was playing there was a huge arena here, and it was called the Izod Center. And we won a contest, the band I was in before this one, and we got to play the Izod Center, which is an 18,000-seat venue. And we opened, so there wasn't 18,000 people there, but when you're sharing the stage with Killswitch and Lacuna Coil and Disturbed, it kind of sinks in a little bit. And, opening for Testament. And but one of the big recent ones was playing Blue Ridge Rock Festival. That was an experience because they treated you like you were famous even though you were nothing. And stepping on stage, they had like 6 stages. Every band from Anthrax to Megadeth to the Rob Zombie to Motionless in White were scattered throughout this huge 6 football fields. And we got to play, we won, and we played, and right next door to me, we're just finishing, and Rob Zombie's hitting the stage, and there was easily 30,000 people. And that was in West Virginia, Blue Ridge Rock Festival, and it's still going on. That was 2 years ago. And they actually cared about unsigned bands back then, because now it's way more about the signed artists. It has turned into something I hoped it was not, but it did. So we haven't been back because they're not letting unsigned artists really participate.
Man, it's funny you're talking about that show because the last song I listened to before I did this interview was going back and watching Darkest Soul at the Blue Ridge Rock Festival, which is just absolutely fucking kick ass.
We had so much fun, just the experience. It's like we're backstage and trailers are everywhere. And am I awestruck? I don't get tongue-tied very much meeting celebrities because I have been backstage and I've met Mike Portnoy, who's a doll. He's a sweetheart. There's only one person I've ever met that made me tongue-tied, and that was Dave Mustaine from Megadeth.
Oh my God.
He's so intimidating, I don't know why, but the guy, like, you try and say hi to him, and he just looks at you. It's like, I couldn't even come up with words. My band makes fun of me all the time. It's the only person I've ever come tongue-tied, and I'm like, I was like, I'm like, all right, just move on, because I can't talk. But you're hanging out backstage with Seven Does, and they're so cool, and I've met them many times because I've opened for them in Jersey, and just they even remember, you know, it's like when the drummer from Seven Dust remembers you, that's, you know, I'm nothing, he's a celebrity, and Joey Belladonna from Anthrax, all those are memories, and I always say that to young artists that are playing and we play with, I'm like, just remember, getting signed and going on the road is fantastic. Been there. I was like, but building memories and meeting people and everything and playing your heart out is what it's about. You know, it's damn near impossible nowadays to get signed and actually make money. Unless you're pop country. You know, let's face facts, metal isn't, you know, it's still big, but the only way you're getting paid is if you're huge.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. It wasn't like that.
I totally agree, and I totally agree how, like, you were talking about how, like, all these festivals are kind of, like, more towards just, like, focusing on signed bands, you know. I remember when, you know, I missed, like, the Ozfest days where they used to have the Battle for Ozfest and have, like, a ton of local bands and everything, and nowadays it's like, I've never been a huge fan of Battle of the Bands, you know.
I hate them. I hate them because it's not based on talent, really.
No, well, you know what I didn't like is that anytime they were, like, going through rounds, like, this is my big problem with the Battle for Bakken, is that they'll always have like the final round in, like, a big city where, like, the big city band from that city wins.
Yeah.
You know, because the way they determine the lineup is how many tickets you sell. But if you're a band from Portland going to go battle in LA, how the hell are you going to drag all those people from Portland to LA and be able to compete towards an LA band?
Exactly. It's 100%.
You know, and then also, like, if you're the headliner band in a battle, you're going to have a more lasting impression than the opener towards the judges.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, I totally agree.
Someone's actually talking and they get it, and you get it.
Well, the thing is, because I watched, it wasn't, you want to know something else, just to throw it out there, just to get back to this interview, is that I don't see a lot of the best bands competing on those.
No.
You know, like from all these regions, I always see bands from, you know, that I've never really heard, or, you know, and sometimes I just feel like not saying the industry takes advantage of musicians, but I feel like sometimes they do. Because the thing is, after they win this battle, Bakken doesn't pay for all your airfare or anything. You still have to come up with $10,000 to go over there.
Yep. And hotel and gear and the money it costs to rent the gear, and that was what was funny to us when we saw the contest. I'm like, all right, cool, you win it. You know, California, then to Germany, it's going to be awesome. And then I was looking at the lines, I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, to finish this off, you have to go play in California, so there's expenses. And then you have to fly your dumb ass all the way to Germany and stay there, and there's expenses. I'm like, this is hardly worth it.
So you know, you were telling me that, like, you know, you went to school for, like, audio production and all that. What do you think about how far recording has gotten? Where, like, nowadays, like, you can just get, like, a $200 interface and just go into your computer. Where, like, back in the day, like, you had to rent studio time. You had to set up all these mics and you know, do live recordings. Like what's your opinion on how audio recording and production has gotten from the 80s to now?
I think any band that was recording back in the day had to be really good, because being someone who recorded bands as projects and stuff, there was very little room for error. Otherwise, you were cutting and splicing like a mother. 24/7, splice, cut and splice. Nowadays, is it easier to record there? Absolutely. Like you're saying, it's simple. And in some ways, if you can cop what you're doing on the album live, then I got mad props for you. but there have been many times where, and it happened at Blue Ridge, where we were literally on the side of the stage watching this band do a song, and her vocals and the bass's vocals did not match up with what was coming out of what the song was. You could literally see him trying, supposedly screaming vocals, but it wasn't matching up. So the whole world of lip syncing and backing tracks and all that has sort of made recording, like Lamb of God, I got mad props for him, because that band drummer, because I focus on the drums, what he did in the studio, he's doing live. That's impressive as hell to me. So in that regard, yeah, recording and albums, it's fantastic. But I think people take advantage of the ease of recording. Like I always make a joke, you know what, guys, hear the songs, this is what I'm playing, program it to that sequencer over there, and I'll go drink a beer. You don't need live drummers anymore, and that's sad.
No, I 100% agree with you, Matt. I'll tell you an experience that really pissed me off recently. It's like I play in a band too, and I went to go get some studio time, and when the drums came up, they're like, "Okay, do you want to record your drums here, or do you want programmed drums?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? Did you just ask me if I wanted programmed drums?" You know what I mean? Like I told him, I was like, "No," because and the thing is, and after he's asked me that, I went and looked back at a couple of the other records he did, and I'm like, "Dude, those are clearly drum machines."
Yeah, you can. Nobody is that perfect. I'm sorry. It's be perfect live as best you can, but people, I always watch the drummers and stuff live. You can see sticks flying and they miss a beat and all that. That's what makes it great, because they're human.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first heard the first record from Lamb of God, I was driving up, I forget where, with my guitar player, and I'm like, "Dude, you've got to check this out." This is right after they changed their name from, I think it was Burn the Priest.
Yep.
And they released their first record, and we're listening to the drums, and they're kind of pioneers in this regard, because the triplet rolls and quad rolls with his feet and everything. And we were both sitting there going, "There's no way he's doing this. Is too perfect." And then you go and see him live, and you're like, "Yep, he's doing it."
Yeah, no, and you know what, and that's what's beautiful though about like the live experience, is that you're going to go to a show and not get the same show throughout the whole tour, especially if you follow a band. You know, and I think that's where like the beauty lies, and like where like the humanness of music comes from, because I totally agree with you. Nowadays, it's like that like what they're doing behind their mics is not what's coming out of the monitors or the PA system. It's just it's so over processed that like that's why I enjoy a lot of like the older genres or the punk scene and all that, because people are still using like raw musicians and instruments and watching you live, man, like you're a fucking animal live. Like you was watching Darkest Soul, there's just rawness coming from everybody, and even from hearing Pete in different songs and everything too. It's like you can just tell like it's a different show each time.
Yeah, it also has a lot to do with weight. I don't know, it's going to sound not crybaby-ish, but when you do festival like that, it's an honor and amazing to be treated as you are treated, like having a whole road crew on the stage moving stuff, and you feel good and happy and fun. The downside is sometimes you're waiting around 10 hours to play because they want you there at a certain time. And it's the same thing with playing little club, little venues in Jersey. It's like, got to be there at a certain time. You wait around for 3 hours. You got to have the adrenaline and the energy, and honestly, not get too wasted ahead of time to bring the pain. And I always worry, worry that you're not doing the best you can on stage. And it sounds maybe kind of silly, but it's true. I always wonder, I'm like, was this good enough? Because I don't know, man. Because every time you're on stage, it's not like you're touring every night. You're playing a show, you got another show in a couple weeks or a month away. So you try and take advantage, and you don't want to let down, whether it's 2,000 people or 10 people. It doesn't matter. Try and do the best you can every time. And I like it at the big show, like at Blue Ridge. I'm sitting up behind the drums going, man, am I playing good enough? Because I'm up against the best of the best. So it's intimidating. But I appreciate you saying that you thought I was killing it, because you do question that.
Well, you know what? In any band I've ever been in, I always say that like the drummer has the hardest job, because a vocal can fuck up here and there, a guitar can miss a note here and there, but if you fuck up on the drums, you're butchering the song.
It's very true, man. When I drop a stick at the most inconvenient time, I wear gloves, I wrap tape, I do everything just to hold on to those sticks. And usually it works, but man, if it flies at the wrong time, it just moves the vibe. So it's, every instrument has their qualms, what's the hard part. But drums are definitely, you gotta give 150%. Because otherwise, what's the point? Like I said, there's no such thing as having a bad night when you're playing a show a month, because that's what you can get, because everybody's booked.
Yeah, no, I totally dig it, man. So, talking about the album, Fall to the Hate, of course, my favorite songs, Demon Disguise, Inside of Me, but, just to be honest, my favorite song, period, has to be Fall to the Hate. The last song on the record. I feel like this song completely separated itself from the rest of the album. I mean, I felt like it had the biggest intro with the dual lead guitars, and then also I felt like it had like the most distinct drumming. I don't know if like a lot of bands tend to put like their best songs towards the end, but because for me, I got a lot of metalcore and a lot of thrash out of this song. A whole lot of like, I definitely hear that. Now that you were talking about Hatebreed, I definitely hear like all the Hatebreed influences in the entire record. But from Coming to Falling, which I felt like was a more radio friendly type of song. Like what, when you guys are releasing new records and you guys are going into the band rooms, are you guys just trying to top the last record? Are you guys trying to get heavier? Like what do you expect out of yourself when you wrote the drums to Fall to the Hate, and what was the idea behind you and your band members writing these songs?
Peter came in and knowing full well that I like heavy, and I would always bust his chops going, we need to be heavier. And he's okay. And at one point, a year and a half ago or so, or even not even though, he sent us an email with 6 songs, and he sent them to all of us and said, listen, and it was the guitar parts, and he put like just a beat behind it that it wasn't anything other than to keep time. And I'm the hardest one in the band. They always make fun. They're like, there's nothing better than having a drummer with an anger management issue. I'm not an angry guy until I'm pushed till the end of my rope. But when it comes to drums, you kind of have to have that edge.
Yeah.
So if it sucked, my tact isn't the greatest in the world, and thank God Pete's got a strong head, a strong backbone. I'm like, that sucks. I don't want to play that. But we would work together. So with this record, yes, the intent was we're going heavier. And Pete would come in with these songs, and I'd be like, like 3 of the songs on the record, I was like, But as it came together, and I was able to get myself and my head space into the songs, they got heavier. And like Fall to the Hate, the middle part, you can smell Hatebreed all over it. And that's, and Pete's been writing these songs because the breakdowns are important. I say that on everything. A song should have a good middle part, because that's, that's the part where you feel the mosh pit. That's what you want. You want them to freaking freak out with something they can hold on to. And I think we brought that on a lot of these tunes. I mean, my favorite one is Into the Half-Light, because it was just different for me. Mantra, different for me. Off-time on Mantra, I am not really an off-time drummer. I wish I was. I'd kill to be, Mike Portnoy or Matt Cameron from Soundgarden or whatever he's in now, the Foo Fighters. But that's what it was. It was like, we need to go heavier. And it just sort of went that way. I wasn't expecting it to be that, but some of these songs he came in with, like Inside of Me, I'm like, what are you doing? And he just wanted to go heavier as well, so everything sort of synced up. And I do not intend to go backwards. Like the first record, the first EP, was us and where we were at the time. Ballin was a big one, and it felt good, and it was relative, and I think that's why people liked it. But it was a good starting point now that we all know each other better, even though we've been family and friends for years. Peter did a good job bringing these tunes to us, man. I was really happy, and like Fall to the Hate, I was like, wow, this one's really cool.
Hell yeah. I really enjoyed this record, dude. I really like that, like, you know, it's like I was saying, like, the riffs are only as heavy as the drums, and I could see how, like, maybe, like, these riffs could have been lighter if they didn't have, like, such an intense badass, like, you behind it. But, no, but you know what, those are my favorite bands in the world, are the bands where, like, everybody can still be themselves, and then come out with, like, this super unique project.
I'm happy that you like them. I appreciate it. The drummer doesn't get many accolades, but I tried. And the weirdest part, and it's not weird, it was tragic, but while in June when I did the drum parts, I can't even really tell you much about the recording process of the drums. At the time, I was losing my father, and so I was running between my job, recording, and sorry about the dog.
Oh, it's all good. I got my 3-year-old running around outside my room.
So my boss was dying. So I was trying to deal with that. So it was a good opportunity to just bring it hard. But at the same time, with all the negativity and everything, trying to take care of my dad, it made me question, did I play well enough in the studio? Because, you know, you got other things, life or death in your mind. So hearing you say that I brought it, that makes me feel better.
Well, dude, of course, man. You know, I wouldn't be doing these interviews if I didn't really, like, you know, I mean, me myself, I'm a musician, and I've been playing guitar 20 years now and singing, and you know, being in a band has showed me a great appreciation, especially for the drummer. You know, because like I feel like in all the best bands in the world, like the drummer really dictates where the sound goes. You know, and all my favorite bands have, like, the best drummers sticking out. You know, like, Avenged Sevenfold is a band I grew up with, and Jimmy the Rev Sullivan was like you know, almost like Mike Portnoy. You know.
Yeah, he's amazing.
You know, and you want to know my favorite drum videos I've ever watched, where it was when Mike Portnoy left Dream Theater, and they had all the auditions, and they had Mike Mangini. You know, trying out for Dream Theater. I thought that was like the greatest like drum audition thing ever,
oh, yeah.
and it made me appreciate drumming so much.
And those Mike Mangini, it's just ridiculous. They're so good. It's mind blowing.
Oh yeah, dude. See, Mike Mangini was the cymbals above his drum set. You ever tried doing that?
Absolutely. It just doesn't work for me.
Well, Matt, so before we end the interview, is it okay if I just throw you 3 off-the-ball questions?
Go for it.
All right, Matt. So if you were in a zombie apocalypse and you only could have one weapon to destroy the zombie horde, which isn't a nuke or the cure, what is your weapon to kill zombies?
I'm a gun guy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a gun guy, so it would be my 12 gauge. And while I'm doing that, I got metal blaring. I will have the fattest riffs, whether it be Metallica or something like that. I would have the biggest, hardest metal music playing.
Hell yeah.
It would be a shotgun.
All right. If the Grim Reaper visited you and he's all, Matt, I'm gonna let you choose your death, but it had to be by somebody in a horror movie. Who would you choose to kill you?
I like the guy from Scream.
Oh yeah. How do you think he'd kill you? You think he'd just like stab you up really quick? You think he'd hang you? How do you think he'd take you out?
Multiple stab wounds. Multiple stab wounds. One of the other that I really like is Saw, the old guy.
Oh God.
I'll play a game, no problem.
He's like you have to keep 300 BPMs for 10 minutes, or if you miss one beat, you'll lose a limb.
No, I'd be dead quickly.
All right, so Matt, you know, all these shows always have like, you know, everybody who plays a bunch of shows has always had like their biggest failure on stage. Not failure, but what's like the biggest like instrument malfunction or something like your worst show ever where like you went on stage and just everything fell apart? What is your biggest like fail show?
Let's see. So I triggered my bass drums.
Yep.
And bass drum broke right through.
Oh my god.
So that goes down, and so does the trigger. So you've got nothing. Luckily, another band let me borrow their bass drum. But that's why I use two. And a lot of times I do them individually, but a lot of times one is set up there as solely as a backup because I've learned. And the other one, which was really bad, it was disgusting, was I was being a tough guy musician, and the show's over, and crowds, happy and screaming and blah, blah, blah. And my drum throne, which was a drum throne I had had since I was a kid, that's how long it had stayed. And I felt like I was teetering on it. So on the last song, all of a sudden something happened and I went over. And so I missed the final big hit. But it turns out my drum throne snapped in half.
Oh my god.
So not to make it even worse, to be a badass thinking, I'm a tough guy, I picked up the pieces and launched them into the crowd.
Oh my god.
And when I launched it into the crowd, I tore the side of my finger and needed stitches. I bled everywhere.
Oh my god.
I was like, this can't be any worse. This just can't be any worse. Breaking drum heads is the worst. There's no coming back from it.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you for doing this interview with the Metal Mixtape. Everybody listening out there, Fall to the Hate, amazing album by Blood Red Roses. If our listeners right now only had one song to listen to on this record that you want played on the radio, and they only had 5 minutes to live, what is the one song you're directing them to?
I got it. The songs that hit me, I'm directing them to, and this is going to sound so weird, I'm a big fan of Till Tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
That's, and I never thought that would be the one, Take You Down or Till Tomorrow, just because of I like my drum parts in them, and I think they bring something to it. But as usual, I'm probably wrong, but I would tell them, listen to Till Tomorrow or Into the Half Part.
Hell yeah. Matt, I appreciate you so much for being on the show. This will be aired next week on the radio here in Ashland, Oregon. I hope you have a great day with your animals, your life and everything. And I subscribe to you guys on YouTube, and I can't wait for future performances, man, because just hearing how real you are behind the drums and how important it is to you to have like that real rawness sound just proves how badass of a band Blood Red Roses is.
I so appreciate you. Thanks for all the helpfulness.
Of course, brother Matt. You have a beautiful day. This has been Blood Red Roses. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, son. Bye.